I want to thank all of you. That's my only purpose of being here. If you don't mind, before we get started, let's give them a round of applause for being here. Hot, long day. And the timing of this event's not easy for you, so with everything going on, I know some need to step off, and so I want to thank you for being here. These subjects that we care about, a lot of these questions are coming from them, and that's what we'd asked, and so it means a whole lot to me and to us that you guys are here to share your feelings with everyone, and most importantly, we owe them and everyone else to go vote. It's frustrating to think how easy it is today, but how little it gets done, and so I'll look today, I think 400 people have voted all day on one day of early vote. So if I'm right, tomorrow you can go anywhere in the early voting sites?
11 sites.
11 sites. So let's make sure to make that happen for everybody. They're working hard to get your support, but the city deserves leadership, and we deserve folks who are going to contribute to that. So with that, let's turn it over to our host and our moderator and our friend, Pastor Brooks.
Thank you, Sheriff Hall. It's good to have all of you here. I understand I'm supposed to do a welcome. You're welcome. Because you would much rather hear what these candidates are talking about. You've been here long enough today to know you're welcome. When we built this facility, I want you to know we had you in mind. When I say we had you in mind, I'm not talking about you personally, but I'm talking about you who make up this community. We built this facility not just for us, but we built this facility for you also. So it is our pleasure to have you here today. All right, for group one, do you believe voting rights should be restored once a person completes their felony sentence?
Thank you, Reverend Brooks, and thank all of you for being here, and I thank the sheriff and his staff for continuously having this opportunity for us to come and share as a community. And yes, I absolutely do. When they go, there's supposed to be rehabilitation, and if they have been rehabilitated, and there's the spirit of forgiveness, I think, that needs to go along with that. So yes, I absolutely believe that they should be restored, because that's the only time that people are equal, is to vote. Everyone has one right to vote, and I think that we should be able to exercise that right.
Hi, thank you for having us here. Yes, I do believe that that should happen. I've had the pleasure of serving on the Tennessee Faith and Justice Alliance and helped put on some expungement clinics in Bolivar. And when you hear the story of people that made a mistake when they were young and they've paid their price to society and they're trying to turn their lives around, but they still cannot find a job, it's very heartbreaking, or they cannot even vote, which is the main right of every citizen. So yes, I do believe that once somebody serves their sentence, the voting rights should be restored.
Thank you, Pastor Brooks, for doing this. We really appreciate the time and the opportunity, and to the Sheriff's Department and to Darren, thank you so much. I had an opportunity last night to be at my synagogue, the Temple, for the Social Justice Forum that addressed this very topic. And we heard from a young man that really hit my heart. It's a young man who had been through the system, who had served his time, wasn't a life sentence, he served his time. And he was trying to put his life back on track. To do that, he wanted to be able to restore his right to vote. It's not a privilege to vote, it's a right. And the hoops that this man had to jump through were mind-bogglingly ridiculous. And until he was able to get an attorney here in town who heard his story and stepped up to help, that made the biggest difference for him. So I absolutely believe that we need to amend the system to make it right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I meant to say I apologize, but I have to leave. I've got a staff meeting that started an hour ago, and it's going to take me 20 minutes to get there. But my campaign manager is here, and he's going to fill in for me. He might need to put on a hat and a wig to look, but he'll be a good replacement. Thank you.
Right.
And I apologize.
Yes, understand that. We want you on the job. Yeah, we want that. Group 2, would you be willing to spend more money to treat a person who is mentally ill than to incarcerate at a lesser cost?
Thanks for that question. I'm Bob Mendez, running for re-election, and the answer to that is absolutely. And I think, I know Sheriff Hall doesn't want this to be a commercial about him, but he has done an incredible job of trying to move the jail system here in Davidson County in that direction. And with the new building that he's overseeing being built, we're going to be able to do a lot better job as a city in doing just that. And I'm looking forward to continuing to put more resources into that because I think there's a widespread agreement, and again, thank Sheriff Hall for his leadership, that treating the outcome of crimes is with incarceration is not where we need to be as a society. We need to be treating symptoms and causes rather than results. So yes, definitely.
Thank you so much for shooting this event, and thank you all for coming. The answer is yes. We should spend more. I think about those that we serve at Kingdom Cafe, and they are previously convicted persons. Oftentimes, perhaps drug addictions is coupled with mental health issues. So if we would begin to heal them and not just hold them in an incarcerated state, it would, in the long term, be less expensive for us. So we must, and educate, surely, our populace in an equitable way. So absolutely we must. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Berkeley Allen, running for council at large, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here and hear your questions and try to answer them in equitable ways. And I do agree that we should be willing to spend more on the mental health than on just locking people up. I mean, there's abundant data to show that that dealing with the mental health issues can put people on a path to be productive citizens. And when we deinstitutionalized mental health treatment in the 60s and simply put those people back on the street, that has led to totally inappropriate responses, which we've had no other choice at this point but to put them behind bars so that they're not causing harm. But we've got decades of data now to show that hasn't solved the problem. So I think the approach that Sheriff Hall has put in place is going to put us on the path to make that work better, and I support that.
Right, thank you. Group 3. What are the primary drivers of the affordable housing problem in Nashville?
Ruben Dockery, Councilor at Large. Thank you so much, Sheriff Hall and Pastor Brooks, for having us here. If we go back 30 years, we see policies that were enacted then that has brought us to where we are. If you and I in a car and go over the cliff, whoever's behind the wheel, we have to ask them, what happened? Okay? When we talk about affordable housing, that's 30% of your annual income. If you are in a position after being in Nashville and going through the public school system and you cannot have such an income base that allows you to live the quality of life you want, you have to ask yourself, how did my education, those who I voted for over the years, and the people I look to for leadership, how well did they serve me? That's where it came from, and we need to turn that around. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you. I'm Steve Glover, current council member in Hermitage and running for council at large. See, I think accountability is the problem. We've been putting money and money and money, but yet there's not been any real results that have occurred. We haven't got a structure in place that makes it work. We don't utilize property we already own, and so therefore, you know, we actually have the answers to a lot of the questions we ask. We just don't choose to take the path to where the answer is. So I think accountability is one of the key things that we have to do. I think we have to look at our resources as far as what kind of inventory we have with regards to property. And how do we make housing affordable? Because right now, land's killing us. The cost of land is killing us. But if we already have land in place and all we have to pay for is materials and labor, that brings your cost down and it makes it much simpler to address that. I'm Steve Glover. I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Gary, can you hear me? Gary Moore, I run for council at large as well. I guess all of them pretty much knew that. But I think part of the problem with affordable housing is we need to raise the income level. I have an in-depth union background, served 32 years with the firefighters, served as president of Tennessee AFL-CIO. All of the building trades here in Nashville have what we call apprenticeship programs. Electrical, plumbing, carpentry, all these programs are there already in place. And what we need to do is go to these local community centers and encourage these youth to join these apprenticeship programs where they can get paid while they're being trained and get a good paying job once they're trained and with benefits. I think that in itself will help more people be able to afford a home here in Davidson County. And again, Scary Moore, I think we need to utilize the programs that are already in place, and I would ask for your vote August 1st. Ask for your vote tomorrow.
All right. I voted last Friday. I always make it a point, and I missed out on a chance to do it this time. It slipped up on me. But what I try to do is, as many of our members who can, meet me at the polls and vote, and then we go eat breakfast together. Anything I can do to generate some fellowship among church members, but also get people to the polls and vote as well. All right, going back to group one. With MTA cutting routes, how would you support transit-dependent Nashvillians? How will you support transit-dependent Nashvillians?
All right, since I'm the newcomer, I'm Danny Glover, serving as the surrogate for Councilwoman at Large Sharon Hurd. But based on many conversations we've had about transportation, it's definitely one of those key issues that all of Nashvillians care about, with the amount of time and hours we're spending in traffic, commuting to and from work and church, and taking care of basic needs. So Sharon supports any traffic measures that implement changes directly to where people are staying and where they're going. She thinks that it's very important that traffic matches where people are moving to. If people are being shifted to North Nashville and Southeast Nashville, we need to make sure that our routes are going there. Also, in addition to that, she's learned from places as Denver, Colorado, and having multiple bus routes, having multiple buses on those routes. If you know that people are traveling more up and down Murfreesboro Pike each and every day, it makes sense to have more buses on those routes. So she supports traffic measures whereas it goes straight to the people and where they're working, and increasing the routes on the buses on the routes.
Zulfat Suara, running for council at large. Cutting transit is the worst thing that we could do. I think we need to increase funding for transit. We need to look at a long-term plan that actually has a lot of stakeholders at the table. And I think there's a conversation already by a group called Transit Nashville. There's about 10 organizations. It has current council members and new people coming in, where we want to make sure that whatever plan we put into place addresses the need of everyone. Oftentimes when we're looking into solutions, not everybody is represented, including the people that need transit the most. But short term that we need to do is increasing bus routes and extending the hours. We have people that are sleeping in bus stops just because there's not enough buses. So we need to extend the hours. We need to increase the routes. I used to live in DC, and I tell everyone that if our transit is very reliable, a lot of people will get on it. Nobody wants to go downtown to go find parking or pay what it costs to park. So we need to make sure that our routes are increased and extended.
Thank you. I'm Sherry Weiner, and I'm serving in Bellevue right now. As far as this issue, in Bellevue, what we have seen over the last 8 years is an increase in frequency and an increase in the number of buses, but not an increase in the number of routes. As far as I'm concerned, listening to people around town and looking at what, from a strategic standpoint, makes sense, is why have we not talked to the area businesses all over Nashville to identify where their employees are coming from, look at the density of traffic and match it up to those zip code numbers, and then identify where we can and how often we can increase that frequency, and look to our bedroom communities, if you will, first. because if you can get our veteran community members from point A to point B, then it's going to really make a big difference in their ability to get to and from work and spend more quality time at home with their families, which is really what we all want. Sherry Weiner, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am one of those who rides the Metro Transit sometimes when I go downtown, because with my Medicare card, I can ride half price. I'm serious. I walk down to Charlotte Avenue, get on the bus, go downtown, go back to the station, get right back off at Charlotte Avenue, walk back up the hill, 85 cents. All right, group 2. If you were mayor tomorrow, what would you do to combat youth violence?
Thanks for that question. I think the two things that would be first on the list would be I would double down with more resources to Judge Sheila Calloway's restorative justice programs in the juvenile court system. Again, to this idea of trying to cut off problems before they get bigger. I think that's a hugely important part of what we do as a city. But that is already when kids have touched the juvenile justice system for the first time. That's when that kicks in. And so the other part would be to continue to focus more on our education system. I know a lot of people are talking about MNPS right now. Dr. Joseph started a lot of good programs in trying to make sure there's more resources in our lowest performing schools, and that would really be where the attention would be, our lowest performing schools and the restorative justice programs. And before my last 10 seconds are up, I'll make sure to mention that for at-large, you get to vote for up to 5 people. There's a bunch of good candidates. Check out everybody's websites and pick 5 of us. Thanks.
My name is Howard Jones, and of course I'm running for council at large. If I was a mayor, I would definitely begin to influence how we're teaching our children. We've got to go back to some common sense pieces in education. When our children leave high school, they need to leave with industry certifications. Our kids are having an economic issue in this city. They want to feed themselves, clothe, and be sheltered properly. And so I would influence that. They need to leave out of high school being electricians, HVAC workers, auto mechanic persons, cosmetology. They need to do that. Second, we need to increase parental involvement in our school system. We need to make it more welcoming for them. And then we need to put resources and indeed make sure those resources are held accountable. We need to make sure we fund schools to make a difference in this city. I think we can do it, and we will. My name is Howard Jones. I'm asking for your vote. We can do it together.
Thank you. I'm Berkeley Allen, and great suggestions here. I would add to those, we need to work on adding more after-school programs and getting our community centers to be open after school and on weekends, and to take advantage of the nonprofits that have a lot of boots on the ground that can help with that, that could use those spaces to provide productive ways for those students to be using their time, because idle time is when they get themselves in trouble. And if we can provide them with productive things to do, they can instead be learning how to work together as a team, or getting after school tutoring or something like that. And those resources are there available to us now. We simply need to fund them. We also need to fund additional social emotional learning programs in schools. A lot of schools have begun to do that, and it's showing great results. And there are also nonprofits like the Find that is represented here today, and Gideon's Army, that work directly on anger management and violence interruption, that the Metro needs to be more deliberate about funding. We can solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, group 3. If you would receive a complaint from an inmate's family alleging mistreatment in the jail, how would you handle it?
First, we have to go through the policies and procedures for the jail. And then we have to ask, have they been followed? What are the facts of the matter? Just as you do any internal investigation. Okay? What we don't need to do is to give people false hope. There's a reason they're there, and it's a good idea that we have a sheriff that's willing to try to rehabilitate them in their circumstances. But we don't need to lie to them, and don't need to give them false hope. We have to encourage them to follow the procedures to make themselves free from that circumstance. So tell them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Somebody say, so help me God.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to do what I've done for the last 8 years, and I'm not trying to do this to the sheriff, but frankly, he and I are, we've gotten a good relationship. I'd call him first and say, this is what I've heard, because I'm not the judge and I'm not the jury in that arena. That's what he's elected to do, is to run that piece of it. And so before I assume anything is happening, I would like to hear what his input is and his staff, and then listen to the other side. And if I need to be the moderator, that's fine, but that's really not my job as a council member. So I have to rely on the people, because people elect individuals to do various jobs. We elected the sheriff to do his job, and so that'd be the first place I would go to, is to the sheriff, to find out where are we on this, and what do you think? Thank you.
I hate it when Steve steals my comments. I would do the exact same thing. I would call the sheriff and say, are you aware of this situation? And then and if he was aware of it, I would get his side of the story. I would, however, follow up with the prisoner and ask him if they have followed the proper procedures to file their necessary complaints and went through the process. I believe in due process for anybody, prisoners or anybody else. We should have the due process. And so I would make sure that individual got his or her due process taken care of. I would make sure if it was a legitimate complaint, then I would go back around to the sheriff and say, Sheriff, this appears to be a very legitimate complaint. How can we address this, and what can we do to handle it? That's the way I would handle it.
Okay, thank you. One thing I am absolutely certain of is that Sheriff Hall is doing an excellent job here in the city of Nashville, Metro government, with the Sheriff's Department. I'm absolutely certain of that. I'm 72 years old, and the only address I've ever had that was not Nashville, Tennessee, was when I was serving in Vietnam. So I've been around here a real long time. And this is the best sheriff's department I have seen in my lifetime. And I just know that if you're doing the right thing, if you check with the sheriff first, because certainly he's done a good job. On a lighter note, you have 30 seconds for these questions I am about to ask. Group one. If you had to eat the same meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I love lamb chops from House of Kebab on Nashville Road.
So as campaign manager, one of my tasks is oftentimes buying lunch for the candidate. So if she had to eat every meal for the rest of her life, it would probably be white meat chicken, white beans, sliced tomatoes, and green beans.
Okay, and no onion?
You're going to laugh. Matzo ball soup.
Hadn't had that one. Group two. If you had to listen to one song every day for the rest of your life, what would it be? One song, rest of your life. What would that song be?
Star Spangled Banner.
Quite patriotic.
It'd probably be Amazing Grace.
I was going to say that one, but I'll go with How Great Thou Art.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That sounds insignificant, but it says something about where your tastes and preferences are. Group three. If you had to eat one dessert for the rest of your life, what would it be?
My mother-in-law, peach cobbler. Rest her soul.
Okay, you hadn't had my wife or my daughter's peach cobbler yet.
You know, I really wish I had some of the others, because I will tell you, I would do turnip greens and beans and cornbread. I would, but for dessert, I would do homemade coconut cake.
Okay.
I'm gonna make mine simple, beat pecan pie.
Yeah, okay. Well, whatever you do, be careful going downtown to the hotels. What's the one used to be the Renaissance? I carried my members down there one time, and they had a lot of bourbon in the pecan, and my members were eating 3 and 4 pieces of that. It looks like they had a sly way to get them a drink in. They loved that banquet that night. We are winding down now. 2 minutes. Each of you may want to take just a moment to think about it, to process your thoughts in order to try to get as much in as you possibly can in 2 minutes. We'd like each of you to take 2 minutes and give us an overview, a summary of what your plans are if elected. 2 minutes. I know that's a lot. Persons who are taught how to interview are taught to sell themselves in 60 seconds. You have 120 seconds to sell yourself here today. All right? We'll begin here. We'll go straight down the line.
Again, my name is Danny Glover, representing Councilwoman at Large Sharon Hurt. You elected Councilwoman at Large Sharon Hurt 4 years ago, and since then she has been your voice and your advocate on her 40-member council. She's one person that oftentimes has said that she holds everybody accountable, from the people that are within her party, from the people that are within her neighborhood, and including the mayor. And as the city moves forward with managing the growth of this growing and dynamic city, it's important that we have a continuity of that voice on the Metro Council. One thing particularly that most of her constituency love about her is the fact that if you call, she's gonna call you back. If you email, you will get a reply. And it's that type of responsiveness we need in this political climate and also in this economic climate in which our city is growing. So Sharon Hurt, she's somebody that's gonna fight for the rights of those who don't have voices in our community, the homeless, the LGBTQ community, those living with HIV and AIDS. She's also going to be a voice to homeowners, as she's been in Haynes Manor in establishing the first community overlay for that community. So the work that she's going to do in the future, she's done in the last 4 years. So I'm asking you, she's asking you, and we're all asking you for your vote tomorrow and through August 1st. Sharon Hurt for Nashville Council at Large.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Zulfat Z, as in Zoro, Suara. When you go on the ballot, make sure you're looking for the Z. I'm a CPA by trade. I'm the assistant controller at Missionary. I've been an auditor before, and I've had the pleasure of working with 4 county government and 2 city governments. I'm also an MMP experience, so I see what's happening in my daughter's school, how we need to equitably fund our schools. I've also been a community activist. I organized the Tennessee Women Day on the Hill. I started junior achievement in Adama County when I thought we needed something there. I've worked with the sheriff office on issues about Muslim inmates. I've been on a lot of organizations and a lot of boards. I'm a commissioner, and so what I say with that is that to have a good budget, you need to have somebody who has the accounting background, which I do, but you also have to know the issues that are important, which a community activist brings to the table. You will not send a plumber to your house if you need to fill your electricity. And so for budgeting and numbers, you need a CPA, which is where I'm running. Lastly, I want to put it out there to all of you that are here. Recently, I've been attacked for my faith. Those that know me, that have worked with me, know that I've never imposed my faith on anybody. I'm running as a U.S. citizen. I'm running on the Constitution that allows me to run as a citizen, and that also allows me to have a faith or no faith at all. So I ask you to look into my background, my financial background, and my community background, and everything that I've done in this town. I want to give back to Nashville. I believe I have the qualifications and the passion to serve you, and I hope I get your opportunity. Again, Zulfat Z Suara, as in Zoro. I hope I have your votes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Sherry Weiner. I currently serve in Bellevue, and I'm known over the last 8 years for several things. Thing number one is I get things done, and you only have to look at what we've done to turn around that community, and I've had the opportunity in the council to share my blueprint for taking advantage of the things going on in downtown Nashville and taking advantage of the prosperity downtown and moving it to my community in terms of amenities, in terms of a transformational catalyst with a destination. In One Bellevue Place, we have created jobs, we have created affordable housing, we have created revenue streams for Metro, as well as give it back to our neighbors, and all of Nashville needs that. I'm known for being responsive and returning calls and in no more than 12 hours and in getting a resolution in no more than 24 to 36. I'm extremely accessible. Everybody knows where to find me and when to find me, and that doesn't change. The other thing I'm known for in my day job, I am a business consultant and I am a specialist in turnarounds. Well, this Metro government budget is in serious need of Sherry's turnaround time. And so for those reasons, to get things done, to be responsive to my constituents, and to help turn around the budget, I would surely appreciate your support. I am the last name on the ballot because it's Wiener with a W. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Again, Bob Mendez, and just to follow up on what Council Lady Wiener just said. So you get to vote for up to 5, and there's 15 of us on the ballot. So it does. It's an interesting position being one of the at-large council people because it's so collaborative. The 5 of us really need to work together. I think the 5 we've had over the last 4 years have done a good job, and I know there's enough good candidates where we're going to be able to work collaboratively again going forward. So be sure to check out everybody's website. For me, the main reason I'm running is to deal with what I see as a loss of vision and a loss of direction that we're facing as a city. For 25 years, the city has succeeded at whatever it put its mind to, whether it's international tourism or soccer or football or hockey. And for the last couple of years, we've been in a little bit of a weird tailspin where if you ask a group of people what's the #1 objective for the city, there is no agreement. You don't even get ideas about what the #1 goal for the city is, and we need to get there. Now, from the council, each one of us is only 1 of 40 votes. The at-larges together are 5 of 40 votes, and we do have an opportunity to, if not set direction, to nudge the direction of the city. The things that I've worked on the most aggressively for the last 4 years are the things I'm going to work on for the next 4 years. And it's 2 main categories: financial transparency and equity issues. On financial transparency, I think my current colleagues would say that I've been the #1 leading voice on reforming tax increment financing, which is the biggest economic development tool we use to make it more responsive to the people, and so we spend money where we want to spend money, where we all want to spend money rather than a few want to spend money. On equity issues, when things like the Driving While Black report came out a few years ago, the very next weekend, 2 days later, I wrote the legislation requiring a response from the police department. It took a lot of us 5 months to get that passed, but we did. I'd love the opportunity to have 4 more years to try to help set the vision for Nashville. Again, Bob Mendez, running for at-large. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Howard Jones. I have been in Nashville all of my life. I was raised in Preston Taylor, which is a project area not far from here. I became a probation officer, and I worked with our children for 10 years. And I couldn't continue being a probation officer because it was not working. It was not helping our children. So I got into education, where I've served for nearly 30 years. I've been a principal. I believe we need equity in the city. Equity in terms of education. Fairness with some common sense. We need equity in affordable housing. And when I tell you about affordable housing, it's not something that I'm saying they ought to do. It's something that I've done. I started affordable housing when it didn't make sense. And we still have affordable housing in South Nashville where the rent is $500 for 2-bedroom units. We could do more of it, but we need leadership. Leadership with a plan, because if we fail the plan, we plan to fail. Then we also need equity in economic development. When you see Jefferson Street, a portion of Jefferson Street, when you see Hermitage and other areas, you find there's a lack of equity. That's what I want to bring. My name is Howard Jones. I want you to go to Howard School and vote for Howard Jones today. Number 10, when you go in and you punch more, see Howard Jones, one of your 5. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. I'm Berkeley Allen, running for Metro Council at Large. I have had the pleasure of serving for 2 terms in the Vanderbilt-Belmont area, working with 2 fantastic neighborhoods. I ran on a platform of successful schools and smart growth that protects neighborhoods and local jobs and safe, walkable, bikeable communities. working with those great neighbors, we accomplished some great things. We got more sidewalks, more bikeways, more greenways. We implemented traffic calming and dealt with the issues that were important to that particular neighborhood. At the same time, I've worked on the Metro Council on much larger issues. I served on the Homelessness Commission and the Affordable Housing Committee and was a co-sponsor of the bill that created the Barnes Affordable Housing Fund. I have also worked on other legislation dealing with housing affordability. We have made tiny steps and tiny strides, but there is a whole lot more that needs to be done, and I would like at least another 4 years to continue working on that. As I've gone around the county and listened to what is important to people, housing affordability has clearly been one of those. Improving our infrastructure, particularly our transportation, is also another important piece of that. And spreading our economic opportunity all over the county equitably is the other piece that people are very concerned about. There is also the issue of youth violence that comes up and how we deal with that, and we answered that question earlier. So as an engineer, a 25-year neighborhood activist, and my 8 years on the council, I feel like I have the experience to continue working to work on those tough issues, and I would like to ask for your vote. I'm Berkeley Allen. I'm at the top of the ballot, and I would love to be at the top of your list.
How many of y'all are constituents of Nashville, Davis County? Raise your hand. Good. I'm not a politician. I'm an advocate for people, and that's where I'm running. That's what you need. You don't need somebody else that'll tell you what you want to hear to get your vote. 4 years later, you're still upset. How many of y'all tired of that? Raise your hand. Ruben Dockery is your choice for council at large. What are you going to do when you get that, Dockery? Well, write this down, constituentadvocacy.com. You'll see that I have 3 focus over the next 4 years. That's addressing the issues with education by empowering parents to be a part of the equation. Also, bringing 260 new business startups, focusing, Sheriff Hall, on young people who have felony records, who dropped out of school, or just don't feel like they can make it. Empowering them to lift themselves up economically. And then lastly, what I call proactive public safety. That's where we as a community look at the root cause of crime and destruction in our city, and we work together proactively with our law enforcement to fix the problem. Not point the finger, fix the problem. You got 5 choices. You got 15 names on the ballot. You won't find Hickory, you ain't gonna find Dickory, but somebody said you will find Dockery. That's Ruben Dockery for council at large. Make me your #1 choice. If you want to win, vote Dockery in. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your vote.
Thank you. Do you want to go before I do, before I steal all your stuff? Okay. So, you know, I never run away from the fact of who I am. I'm a conservative. You know, I don't ever dodge that question. Somebody asks me, that's what I tell them, because that's what I am. It doesn't always mean people like what I have to say, but I'm going to tell you what I believe, and you don't have to worry about if I'm lying to you, because I don't do that. Again, you might not like what I say, but I'm going to tell you what my opinion is. So here's my opinion. We've made major mistakes over the last several years. We have not had public safety education and paying down our debt as key principles of what we should be doing. We don't understand priorities in the city. Now, I've been preaching about this for a while, but if we don't get our priorities in line, we will continue to fail, because when we tell employees we're going to do a cost of living adjustment and we don't honor that, then we just lied to them. And so I fought diligently for that. We got them halfway there. We didn't get them the whole way there. You know, we don't have a money problem in Nashville. We have a spending problem. $44.8 million in new debt service in this current budget. So what's it cost us to do a 3% raise? $18 million. Well, I guess we could have handled it if we had handled our spending habits earlier. So for me, it's gonna remain, and one of the reasons I like working with some of the council members that are there now is because we do bring different thoughts and different processes. But the priorities, I think we'll all agree on the priorities. How we get there is where we may disagree. So I think, you know, on the front row, I think it's a great idea if you have diversity there to represent what, you know, the city as a whole is expecting from us. My name is Steve Glover. I would appreciate your vote for council at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Honesty, integrity, and a proven leader. This is what other people have said about me, and I'm proud of that. I served 8 years in the State House, and while serving in the State House, one of the first pieces of legislation that I tried to get passed was to raise the income level for those senior citizens that needed assistance in freezing their property tax and in paying their property tax. I couldn't get it passed. So what I do, I went and started a 501c3 called Property Tax Assistance, Inc. And through that program, we have been able to pay the property tax assistants. Once they go to Metro Action Commission and qualify, what we found out is they still could not pay the balance of taxes that they owe. We pay that for them and have managed to be able to keep senior citizens in their home by that nonprofit 501c3. That's the kind of work that I have done my whole life. That's the kind of work that I will continue to do. And I'm going to piggyback on him just a little bit. I think more infrastructure. We've allowed our city to outgrow our infrastructure. We have sewer lines and water lines breaking almost every day. Yet we can build the big tall buildings, and we cannot provide the actual services that the citizens of Davidson County need as far as our infrastructure. We need to prioritize our spending. And do we need a tax increase? Who knows? If we need it, you bet your bottom dollar I'll vote for it. If we don't need it, you can bet your bottom dollar I won't vote for it. It's that simple. But I will be looking at where our money's going, how we're spending our money, and prioritizing our spending to make sure we cover public safety, infrastructure, and public schools, and we have more transparency in where we're spending our money. That I can promise you I will do, and I will ask for your vote tomorrow. All through August the 1st. I appreciate your vote. Once again, Gary Moore, Council at Large.
Thank you so much. I've sat here in awe. The thing that has had me in awe is that we have 9 persons making presentation, and each respected the time of the other. No one, did you pay attention? No one went significantly, not more than 3 or 4 seconds, over his or her time. Usually, in a setting like this, there's at least one who sees himself or herself more important than the rest, and they will take time that belongs to someone else. I sat there and I thought about it. If I could vote for all 15 of you, I would go back, because I voted last Friday. I would go back and re-vote all over again and vote for all 15 of you. But again, you are to be commended. That says something about your ability to capture your thoughts and then communicate them intelligently. And one of the key things about good leadership is communication. There are a lot of leaders who do a lot of talking, but they don't do much communication. And you have done well, not just talking to us today, but communicating with us on today. So I thank you for each of your presentations on today. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for